Welcome, everybody, to the Leadership HMN podcast. I'm your host, Chief Talent Officer at Leadership Has No Mantra, Edwin Medina, and I'm joined again by Philip Alexander Cunningham. He is the lead consultant at the Academy of Professional Engagement and co-founder of Yama Health. Welcome back, Phil. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, man. So today, I really want to get into what's called the thrill of the fight, and just want to tackle that from a variety of angles. And I would love to dive into it from Coach John Wooden, 11-time national championship at UCLA. He defines thrill of the fight as competitive greatness. And what he means as competitive greatness is that you are at your best when the best is asked of you. So from a leadership standpoint, what does that mean to Phil?
Yeah. So it's funny that you brought up John Wooden because he is like the best of the best that has been one of the greatest coaches in the history of college basketball, and maybe just one of the greatest coaches in life, right? And over the year, he's probably coached like thousands of different leaders on just the systems that he's able to put in place for basketball and how that potentially relates to business, right? But when I think about the thrill of the fight, and when I think about this idea of being your best when the best is needed, there's usually this idea that like people have to get super excited and work themselves up to be in this particular situation, right? But the reality is when you've been around like elite level athletes and also elite level leaders, right? And when I say elite, I mean the top 10% of performers in their specific field, right? Those folks go from being really excited to like extremely focused. And it can be jarring the first time that you see someone like make the transition. Sometimes people say in sports where like they flip the switch, right? And they have a performance that feels like it is outside of the realm of normalness. And that performance is like so high level that you would think that at every second they would be like uber excitable, but that's not how it happens, right? It's actually like they're in this space where like they only see the next step, but the next step is like 10 steps ahead of everybody else. So I wanted to find about this because I was thinking about this all week, especially when you sent it over to me. I was like, let me think about the moments when I have been in the thrill of the fight and the moments where I've seen other people be in the thrill of the fight or just kind of like get into their zone, the competitive greatness, right? And it's really the moment where you can manage your natural reaction to high stress moments to be able to get the very best out of yourself and out of others. So what does this mean for leaders, right? Sometimes for leaders, you find yourself in like a high stress pitch environment, right? You have to pitch your wares, sell your goods, do whatever it is that you do in a really high stress environment, right? Maybe you have to make this sale because you need to be able to make it for the end of the month. Maybe you have to have a really hard conversation with members on your team that you've been dreading having for a very long time. What I would encourage leaders to do, and what I encourage just athletes to do, is that they have to calm down and figure out what is the main thing in this particular situation and focus on that. I would also encourage them to like think about all of the other factors that are going into this particular moment, specifically the fear that is related to that, because that's the thing that really stops us from like making ourselves like make this transition into like high level contribution.
Absolutely.
It's the fear that somebody else is going to like feel some type of way about what it is that we're going to say. It's the fear that what if we don't do a good job? It's all of the fear is just the distraction that ultimately is playing a role in you getting to that highest level of performance. And the reality is that fear is like natural. Everybody's afraid. It is actually like part of our DNA for us to be afraid. That fight or flight emotion or the hormones that come into your blood when you find yourself in a fight or flight situation are there to help you be able to either run away from the situation or survive the specific situation that you're in. But the reality is we are most of the time not in life or death situations. When I'm playing basketball, when I'm boxing, but probably not because I'm not that good. And, the person across from me is not going to beat me up till I die. But like in a leadership situation where I have to show up as my best, it is not a life or death situation. And so once you get past the fear and you can focus on the main thing, you actually are able to tap into this competitive greatness or this thrill of the fight that will allow you to be able to do things that you didn't think that you could do. So I know I just talked a lot. I don't want to continue to talk a lot because I'm really interested, Edwin, in how does this translate into the military? I know that you have a military background. I don't know if all of your viewers always know that you have a military background, but what does this mean in real life for you as a soldier?
Yeah. So for me, it means so like the number one lesson I got, and I got it from well, he ended up retiring as Master Sergeant. So shout out to Master Sergeant Sean Miles. But he was my first squad leader, and he was between him and Drill Sergeant Tompkins when I was going through basic. Man, the number one lesson they told me is you can't ask any of your soldiers to do anything you're not willing to do yourself.
Mm,
So with that, I thought if I'm gonna push my soldiers to be the best at PT, at physical training, I have to be at my best at physical training. If I'm
yeah,
gonna talk to them about their professional appearance, on how their uniform looks, the boots shine, all this other stuff, I need to be at my best.
yeah,
Professional appearance, boot shine, uniform to the T. So that's to me how that's how competitive greatness is translated over. So that I had to constantly push myself to be at my best if I was willing, if I was going to be in a leadership position, to push other people to be at their best. So I always thought it was condescending, from any leader, whether it's in the military or I'm in corporate America, for them to push me at, to be at my best. And then I would look at them as like, yeah, I get that, but you're not willing to do it yourself. So why should I?
yeah,
And by no means did that ever stop me from being at my best, but it always gave me some like really good reflection of when I am in a leadership position, how
yeah,
condescending that's going to look. So it was always the fear of, I don't want to look condescending, and then also that if I want my team to be at my best, I'm hands down going to be at my best, whether it's in physical training, pickup basketball game, whatever it is. Professional appearance, presentation, putting reports together. I'm gonna be at my best no matter what, because information's being asked of me, leadership's being asked of me. People are looking at me towards leadership, so I'm hands down giving the best, the best version of myself.
yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I want to spend a moment here because I think that I want to make sure that people pick up on what it is that you're putting down right now, which is specific around the idea of setting the standard, right? As a leader, it is important for us to set the standard. If you want to be competitive, if you want to be elite,
Absolutely.
you have to set the standard. And you have to make sure that you set the standard every single day. Now, there will be days where you're going to be off, and that's part of just humanity, right? But the reality is, if you create a specific set of habits or specific set of systems that ultimately make sure that you are always at this level of excellence, right? And I'm not saying that like you always have to be on and that you always have to be on the grind. I think that there is a space for rest in life, right? But when you show up and you are asked to be a professional in this particular situation, it's important for you to like operate out of your standards of excellence every single day. I coached fourth graders, right? These were elite level fourth graders back in, I think it was like 2018, right? And the first lesson that I learned is that they will do what it is that I do and not what it is that I say. And I have to
Exactly.
create a very consistent practice environment. And I have to set a standard of this is what we're going to do as a team. Now, granted, we didn't win all the games that we wanted to win every single week, right? But these kids are like probably like sophomores, juniors in high school, and they are excellent athletes. They were very talented in the fourth grade, but now like there's some standards that I feel like I set. I'm taking some credit for some of their success, right? But there's some standards that we set that was like, we're going to play hard defense. Every single one of these kids to this day play really hard defense, right? We're going to make our layups, right? We talked about this idea of like, what did we call it? We said that we played aggressive defense that led to great offense, right? And part of that was like, we were going to get steals, we were going to get in the lane, and we were going to make our layups. If you miss layups, the whole team runs and the whole team does push-ups. We were setting a standard so that we were always in it for the thrill of the fight. And I remember we were at a tournament in Indianapolis, and we were down 20 at the half. And I called on the team to step it up. And these fourth graders like literally got into the thrill of the fight, right? They were in it. And we end up winning the game by like 1 point in the last final seconds. And it was wild because we were just like, we had to be in it. And it felt like there's no other feeling like this from an athletic perspective or even from a leadership perspective, where like everything moves in slow motion, where every opportunity that potentially presents itself, you take full advantage of it. And you know, you
Yeah,
can
you
make
train
this.
for it. This is
Yeah,
exactly what you train for.
this is good. Yes, yes. So it was a good time. It was definitely a blast. And I have no idea why I went on a tangent like this, but it was, yeah, this is just bringing it back to my memory about this idea of being in the thrill of the fight. So yeah.
No, that's dope. So what you said, so what you said in regards to all that. So the way the military gets you ready for that is is all those things that I mentioned in regards to like physical training, your professional appearance, all that other stuff. Um, it prepares you that one thing that you have to understand in a leadership role is that you have to be able to accomplish the little things. You have to be really good at the little things before you could
Yeah.
even be really good at the big things. And everyone thinks, oh, well, when I get this bigger responsibility, I can stroll in the office at 9:05, because they know, hey, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna kill this presentation, and I'm gonna be great. But what you don't realize is you walking in at 9:05
Yeah.
also means that hey, like there's a little bit of relax, like on the standards,
Yeah.
and you really can't let that seep in. So I mean, that's why in the military, like all those little things matter, because when you do get to the big things, if you're disciplined in all these little things, the
Mhm.
big things won't falter. And I think people miss, the connection of like you said, hey, you coach the basics, you coach basic principles, hey, we're going to play hard defense. But what that translates to is when you're in the big game, the little principle of like, hey, we're going to go hard on defense pays off in the big games. It's
Oh,
not that
100%.
hey, they were excited about the big game. They, like they took it in. They knew this was the championship game and that we have to be at our best. No, they were at their best when you were going through all the little defensive drills that
Yeah.
allowed them to be at their best, during that big game.
Yeah. And that is the job of leaders, to set that standard all the time. Is that when you show
Absolutely.
up and it feels like it doesn't matter, they make sure they create an environment where the little things do matter consistently. They build the system and the standard so that it always matters. So then when the big things happen, it's actually not a big thing because you're doing something that you've practiced a million times already.
Yep, absolutely. So when it comes to that, in regards to having the thrill of the fight, when has Philip's obsession to be, to have competitive greatness, to be at his best, to have that thrill of the fight, helped you overcome obstacles?
So, I mean, there's been a million different, really hard things that I've experienced in my life, right? And we don't have to go through all of those different obstacles. What I will say is that the idea of the thrill of the fight and not being afraid to like, and this is really like, I don't always like to use this term, but like strap up your boots and just go. I've had to like early in my career and also early in my life get comfortable with that idea that I have to like engage as fully in anything that I really, really want. And I'll give you an example because I'll take it back to basketball because we've been talking a lot about sports and this is like a sports related conversation. So when I was in the fourth grade, I tried out for the basketball team, right? I was a horrible basketball player, right? I couldn't dribble with my left hand. I couldn't make a layup. I was just a really bad basketball player. I got cut, right? So that entire summer and that entire winter, every day, I dribbled my basketball because the coach told me that the reason I didn't make the team is because I just couldn't dribble and I couldn't dribble with my left hand. So that entire summer, I literally just dribbled with my left hand, rain, sleet, snow, whatever. I was just dribbling. I didn't shoot. I didn't pass. I didn't do anything but dribble. I learned how to dribble with my head up. I learned how to be able to see the basket. I learned how to see the court. And I got really, 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 really good at dribbling. Now, here's the thing. I go back my fifth grade year. I want to make the fifth grade team. I get cut again. Why? Because I didn't know how to make a layup, right? So I got outstanding. And the coach, he gave me my props. He was like, Phil, like the leap that you made from fourth grade to fifth grade is
That's
huge.
awesome.
But you also need to be able to like finish. And that's the other part as it relates to leadership, as it relates to life, is that there are the little things that matter, but they also have to be attached to other little things that matter. Because if I
Absolutely.
can get open, right? Think about this even in your work, right? If you're really good at creating the sales opportunity, but not closing the sale, all of that is for nothing. And so what you have to do is you have to start to think about, what is the bigger picture? Why am I doing and practicing all that it is that I'm practicing in order for me to get what expected result, right? In the fourth grade, I didn't understand that there was an expected result from me dribbling all that time, right? Am I going to pass the ball to somebody to make the basket, or am I going to make the basket myself? Now, if I practice on something to become elite at one thing in my life, it has to at least be able to create an outcome that is important for the organization, for myself, for the team, for whatever it is that I'm doing, or I am practicing in futility, right? So it's important for when you start to think about the thrill of the fight is that you put the thing that you are really good at or really bad at and got good at, along with something else to be able to finish the game, right? Or to finish the sale, or to finish the conversation with your team, because it's that is what actually helps me get to a space where I'm able to like use the thrill of the fight to be able to like get things done. And I want to pause for a second, because I feel like I didn't answer the question fully. Is that the reason that I wanted to connect the fourth grade to the fifth grade learning, right? That obstacle really early, is because what it also taught me is that you have to think about the end in the beginning, right? What is it that I'm practicing for? And why am I practicing for this specific thing? The second thing is that when you are in the thrill of the fight, or learning to develop a desire to be in the thrill of the fight, you actually learn to love the process.
Absolutely.
The part that I think was super fun about all of this is that I knew that I was getting better every day, because I could tell the things that were hard for me became easy for me, right? And this is even, I see this even today. Like, there are things that I get up and I do that are more difficult in the beginning, or they were more difficult a month ago, and now they're like way easier. I still play basketball to this day with a group of guys. We get up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
like Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? And there's certain parts of my games that I know that I can do because I've been practicing since I was in the fourth grade, right? And there are other parts that, because I'm getting older, I haven't been able to do as much. But what I'm starting to see is that part of my game is starting to come back, because I have like began to dedicate my time and energy to getting better at this specific part of my game, specifically 3-pointers, right? I was always a pass and kick kind of guy, but now that's a lot of energy to give up. So now I'm shooting for 3, right? But I also will go to the gym and shoot 3s because I want to be in the fight and competitive. So I think that's part of the thing that's helping me push through.
Yeah,
and you
man,
see
I think you touched on two things. One, it actually goes back to what you said earlier, is that you know, you can't get laser focused on what's in front of you, but that doesn't negate that you're not thinking about the big picture. You just know, hey, this step or this stage is the next stepping stone for me to either accomplish you know, my next mission, to kill the next presentation, to close the next big sale. So I think that's awesome that even though you do get laser focused, it doesn't mean you're negating, you know, the big picture. Is that, you know, hey, this part right here is super important, you know, to be able to close that sale, you know, to make that 3 or to kill it in that presentation. So that was really good. And then there's an Asian proverb, basically what you said, that kind of summarizes everything you said, and it's everything is difficult before it becomes easy. Yeah.
That's, oh man, that is so real. That's a whole that's a whole podcast in itself. Oh my gosh, that is so real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah. So I mean, think about it. Like, that's so good. So my son, right? He's 10 months, 11 months. He's like going to be 1 next month, right? And it's so crazy to watch him go from not being able to turn over to learning how to crawl, right? So the things that he used to like struggle with, I remember watching him. I would lay him on his back sometimes on my bed, and I would just see how long it would take for him to like turn over. And he would get frustrated, and he would kick his legs, and sometimes he would cry, and his mom would want to just like turn him over and like, so he could go, right? I don't want to hear my baby cry. But you know, part of the job of fathers is to like,
absolutely,
is to like grow their sons into men, right? And I'm not saying that this is going to be the thing that grows him into a man, but I created a safe environment for him to struggle productively so that he
Absolutely.
can learn how to turn over. And so then he can learn how to crawl. And now he's starting to get to a place where he's like standing up on his own. And before I know it, he's going to be walking. But at every single stage, he's finding himself like hitting this wall where he's like, I don't know what to do in this situation, but I'm going to work hard to get through this particular part of this like moment of hardship in my life. And this shows up for everybody. Think about it
Absolutely.
as a leader, right? When you go from being an individual contributor to a manager, you are literally making a transition from I can do this on my own to now I am leading the people who have to do it on their own, right? And that's a hard transition. There are so many people who don't make that transition from individual contributor to manager. They become a person who just is there to push the paper that somebody else has told them to push, right? But then when you become like, when you move from manager to director, where you're leading the people who lead the people, it's a completely different conversation in itself, right?
Absolutely.
And every transition, you are literally starting back at zero. You are literally starting back at, I don't know how to turn over. I don't have enough strength to turn over. But once you get there, and this is the thrill of the fight, because you have to embrace this failure. You literally have to embrace the failure that goes along with learning this new thing or this new skill or this thing that you have never done before, but you see so many other people do that. Yeah. And that is a game changer.
I
But to
totally
be able to
agree.
see it, oh my gosh, this is good.
Yeah.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thrill of the fight's not just, it's not just the big moment, you know,
No.
it's not the fight. It's not the big, you know, sales call that you're going to close or anything like that. It's also everything leading up to that to get you ready, you know, for that big moment as well. Because
Yeah.
if you don't have the thrill to grind it out, you know, to go through the process to make yourself better, to get to the point where you can close that sale, you know, where you can show up in the 12th round and you know, get that knockout and get that belt you were looking for.
Yeah.
You don't have it.
Yeah. So here's what's funny is that when you prepare properly, it actually makes the fight fun, right?
Yep.
Because like, and you see this in boxing matches when you like have someone who's super talented and they've done the work and they sacrifice and they've done all the things. When they're in the ring, there's a moment where they realize like this is not what I expected it to be, and I'm actually going to have some fun with this. Sugar Ray Leonard used to do that a lot, right? You'd be able to like you'd see that, oh, this guy can't hit me, right? And he would hit him with the like it
Yeah, the little
it
shoe
is
shiner.
yeah, it was beautiful to watch. When guys start to realize that they are operating at an elite level and their competition can't do anything with them at all. With salespeople, there's a moment in the sale or in the process where they realize that this is like fun because I prepared for this, where they have the
Yeah.
rebuttal, where they like, where actually the customer and them are literally saying, okay, well, here's the idea that I have, instead of a conversation of like, let me convince you to buy this thing. And so
Absolutely.
like those who are great at this, like you could see them having fun, but it's because they put in the work in order for them to be able to get to a place to perform at a really high level.
Yep. Totally
Yeah.
agree. No, that's good.
Yeah. All right. So I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. All right. So here's a question. What environments asked you to be at your best when you were at your best when you needed? Like what environments? So this is the real question. At what point in your life or in your career or like in any space in your life did you feel like you had to be at your best and you showed up and you were your best?
Man, that's a great question. It's a great question. It's an easy answer. So it was when I deployed to Iraq in 2003, and about 4 months in, our squad leader gets sent home, and then I'm next in line. I'm the next you know, second highest ranking person in the squad. So then I get thrown in, and now I'm the squad leader. And the difference between being in Iraq, being deployed in a war zone versus being at home, at, you know, in your bases, you're not playing Army anymore. It's not about being your best at physical training. It's not about being your best at your, you know, professional appearance or being the subject matter expert in your job.
Right.
Now you have to be at your best, because now I have 6 soldiers whose lives are at stake, right? So now
Yeah.
if I'm not at my best, what I'm doing is I'm actually shrinking or dwindling down their chances of actually making it home, back to their families.
Mm.
So man, to say that was a healthy pressure is a complete understatement,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I knew that if I was at my best, from 2003 to 2004, if I was at my best for that 12-month process, that I increased the likelihood that they could make it back to their families. Man, I was on top of everything. And I mean, when I
Okay.
say I was like hands down, like I didn't falter, I didn't blink, like everything that came my way, it was just boom, 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 boom. But it was
Yeah.
really because every single day I had the reminder, I saw those 6 faces and I was like, I can't fail them. Like I
Yeah.
can't fail them today. I can't fail them for a second. You know what I mean? And that's really what kept me at my best, is knowing that I had to do everything within my power to increase their likelihood to make it back home to their families. And just seeing them
Yeah.
say good morning was the reminder of like, hey Medina, like
Yeah. I'm in it.
it's game
Yeah.
time. A++ game.
Let me ask you this, because I think that people hear about someone showing up every day as their best. What is it like? What was your process for showing up day in and day out? Because I know that's a bit of a grind. Not even a bit. That is a grind. So what did you do to prepare yourself every day for that?
So for me, it was really just clinging on the commonality, regardless of how people showed up, during that deployment for 12 months. I
Mhm.
knew everyone wanted to make it home, right?
Mhm.
So it was 12 months of optimism, of
Mm.
just being able to be just an aura of optimism. And I don't mean like false hope, you know what I mean? Because you really don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen over there. So it's not that I was giving false hope of like, hey, everything's going to be okay, you don't have anything to worry about. It was nothing like that. But it was the aura of optimism of hey, we're about to get through this day. Hey, we're going on this convoy. We're about to get through this convoy. Hey, if we start getting shot at, hey, we're about to make it out of this fight. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Regardless of what the outcome may be after that, it's hey, my aura is optimism. I'm gonna make it through this. You're gonna make it through this. We're gonna make it through this.
Yeah.
And really it was that. And in all honesty, when people ask me about that Bronze Star medal right there that I earned,
Yeah.
and it was literally, it wasn't no action based thing. It was really that I cared about those individuals. I cared about them being in a
Mm.
position to make it home back to their families, and that's really what earned me that award.
That's outstanding. So there's one thing that I'm hearing as you talk about this, and it's this idea that sometimes you are able to be in the thrill of the fight because of the people that you serve. This is super interesting about leadership, is that you see the greatest leaders are actually focused on others and not on themselves. I think there's this falsehood that exists that leaders are about themselves, and there's the bravado that goes along with me building myself up. But the reality is that you see that the greatest leaders show up when they are showing up for the people that they are serving, right? And in that moment, they are able to like transcend even what they potentially saw in
Absolutely.
themselves. And so I'm so happy that you brought that up, that you serving them made you be your best every day. And that's a lesson to all leaders, is that it's important for you to be in a space where you love is the word that I want to use. I'm not sure if it's the right word, but like you love the results of serving your people, and you love your people enough to sacrifice for them and show up for them every day.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, I had no preconceived notion that I was going to get deployed to Iraq, and I was going to come back and I was going to earn a Bronze Star medal, and that was my goal. Like that was
Yeah.
never it, whatsoever. And to further your point, so we had we had a convoy. We ended up losing 3 people, right?
Mm.
And then I had a soldier who's next on the rotation, to go on the convoy. And
Mhm.
everything within that individual from a humanity standpoint, they should have been scared. We
Yeah.
just lost 3 people, to an ID, and it was their turn to go next. And then they were just taking their time trying to get on, trying to get their stuff ready and everything like that. And I walked over, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on? Like convoy's meeting. Like you gotta make sure you're over there." And I could just see it in their face. And I'm not a fan of public hazing. So I pulled the individual off to the side and I was like, what's going on? And make no mistake about it, I knew exactly what was going on because everyone's scared at this point.
Yeah.
And you know, he said, you know, Medina, I don't want to go. I'm scared. And I said, cool. I said, I'm gonna go in your place. And again, that had zero to do with me. I said, I'm gonna go in your place. I was like, but take today to get your mind right, because we still have 4 months left.
Yeah.
And you still have a convoy rotation that you need to fill.
Yeah.
And the reason that I went for that individual was because if I could have forced them to go and they could have went.
Yep.
And if something would have happened and they would have froze and they would have caused somebody else their life, then I just failed.
Yep.
And I just cost somebody their life because I just wanted to pull rank, or I just wanted to be the leader and I wanted to give an order. But at that time, I didn't want to cause somebody else their life. And I knew at that moment, hey, I'm dealing with the same thing, but I'm managing it a little better. I'm gonna go, because if something does happen, we need an individual who's willing to fight, who's not gonna cause somebody else their life. And that was the sole purpose that I went.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is the literal definition of the thrill of the fight, right? Is that you show up and you had to be your best when your best was necessary.
Absolutely.
The thing about leadership is that you sometimes have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations as an example to the rest of the team.
Absolutely.
To instill in them a fire that may not be there. So yeah, I applaud you. I've never heard this story. Thank you for that. That's
absolutely. And then that moment, like the Army, we have these 7 values and there's duty. And I could have harped on that, like, oh, you have a duty and all this other stuff to go. But a part of that is also personal courage at that point. And I couldn't ask somebody, going all the way back to the beginning, I can't ask somebody to lock in on their personal courage if I'm not willing to lock in on my personal courage and show them that I'm willing to lock in on my personal courage. So at that point, the speech wasn't like, hey, we have a duty, like you have a duty to go, no. Like, lesson here is personal courage, and I'm going to show you how to lock in on personal courage, and I'm willing to lock in on personal courage so you can lock in on personal courage.
That's outstanding. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
For that. Yeah.
So I will say, in maintaining competitive greatness, hands down, we're going to talk about you for a second. Hands down, without you is, I feel like it's cheesy to say you're never satisfied, but you're always in this constant pursuit. You know what I mean, of greatness, and it's dope because I've seen it take place over like the past 10 years. But you're in this constant pursuit of greatness, and you're always looking like, all right, I did that. How can I top this? How can I one up myself every single time? So what is it that that helps you maintain that drive from a competitive greatness standpoint, or what is it that allows you to continue to push your accomplishments?
Yeah, that's super funny that you noticed that, because I hope this doesn't sound cliche, but I'm not keeping score, right, with myself. Right? There's just a version of myself that is ahead of me that I'm chasing. And to be like really transparent, like really, really transparent, I think that started out of like a level of insecurity, right? Because I wanted to be the best, but I was not the best at anything, right? I was a good student. I was a horrible athlete. as a kid, I was just a regular kid, right? But I had this desire to like make an impact on the world, whatever that meant, wherever I was, right? And so I think it probably happened around like 18 or 19, where I was just like, I really want to make a mark, but what does making a mark look like, right? So if I were to go back to like this idea of like starting with the end in mind, and I started to really write down like, okay, if I made a mark and this was over today, what would I have wanted to accomplish in order for this to feel like it was worth it, right? And at the time, I'm 18, 19 years old, so like a 6-pack was important to me. So I would run every day and I would eat right and I would do 100 push-ups and 1,000 sit-ups and all that sort of stuff. And then it became like business goals and career goals. And like there were so many things that like became obstacles that I had to overcome in order for me to like achieve my goal. But as soon as I achieved the goal, I would just mark it off and just keep going. My wife says this to me all the time, is that like you don't take enough time to like stop and actually look at what it is that you've been able to accomplish. And at this point, I'm like, I'm in it. And so like I've committed to being in it. So it's not important for me to like look back and count the things, because that's actually at the end of the day not that important anyway. I think I've made this transition to like, let me see if I can. And if I can, I know that there's other people that are watching me that will be inspired by that, me doing that, right? And I'm not even like keeping count of the people that I inspire. I'm really just trying to keep like a pace of where it is that I'm trying to go. So every 3 years, like I make a new vision for what this would look like if it were successful, right? And there's trinkets, right? Like if I do this, I'm gonna buy this watch because I've reached this level of success, right? Those are things that like, because there's not trophies in life, but sometimes you have to celebrate yourself. So I'll go and do that thing. I realize that the trophy and the trinket is not that important, but it's just like a physical reminder of like a process that I went through, right? And I hold myself accountable to said process. So if I don't do it, I won't get the end prize that goes along with that, right? But like there's so many things that I'm like constantly curious about that I feel like I have the time, energy, talent, and resources to pursue. So I will go after it. I know that there's going to come a time where things are going to slow down and I won't have like the same level of energy. I mean, I'm not even the same level of energy as a 20-year-old feel, right? Or even when we first met, as a 30-year-old feel. But I also think that my impact then at 50, 60 will be significantly different and significantly larger because of what I've like developed and learned up to this process. So yeah, I think part of it is that I don't keep count. Like I am not counting all the cool things that I've done. Like I don't even think about that sort of thing. And then I'm chasing a version of myself that is ahead of me. And my goal is to catch them. And whenever I do, I literally just like, and it sounds bad, just move the goalpost where I'm chasing a different version of that. So yeah.
No, that's dope. And that's also that that your wife pointed out to you. And I also want to point out that everything you said is not really lip service. You really don't keep count. Because every time, like we meet, and even if like you fall off the grid for a while and like you come back, I'm always applauding like dang, you realize like you just made a jump from here to here, like within the past 2 years. And that's pretty dope. And you're always like, you always have a genuine like, dang, I really didn't I? Like it doesn't even sink in with you. And I like watching it, because I think people don't realize that how much just focus and determination and how far it could really take you.
Oh my gosh. So quick story. And I don't like to use these as like opportunities to talk about myself, right? So in what was this, 2015? So right before we met, maybe it might even been, no, it was like maybe 2012, right before we met. I had just graduated in 2011 with my executive MBA from the University of Toledo. And I moved to Columbus. And that year in Columbus was probably the hardest year of my career as it relates to like humility, because I was cleaning banks. I couldn't find a job anywhere. Like I had executive MBA. I had started a business earlier in my career. I'm like the youngest graduate of the program. I had other job offers around the country. And that year I was cleaning up Huntington Banks on Sawmill Road. There's 3 of them. And I made like
that's crazy,
$7.85 an hour. And it wasn't enough money for me to drive from my apartment out to Sawmill Road, so basically in Dublin, to clean these 3 banks. But I did. And I did it for a year and a half. And like during that year and a half, I really focused down on being great as a professional and what that meant. And I used the time cleaning banks specifically on creating like a spotless environment to translate into me being a much better professional. Because when you have success young and early, we just talked about this. When you have success early, sometimes you pick up bad habits that don't benefit the overall career or character of the individual. And so for me, when I look back, that time, that year and a half, cleaning those 3 Huntington banks on Sawmill Road, and those 3 banks are still there. I drive past them sometimes now. And cleaning those 3 banks actually taught me that the basics and being on time and making sure that everything is spotless will roll over into you being a good professional, right? So now when I show up, and I was not like I didn't like pay attention to all the details, but now I'm very much so like a detailed person. I am not like a detail-oriented person, but I hire for that weakness, right? There are people on my team who like I send stuff to say, hey, can you look at this? Because I don't want to make sure it is right? But I also, if necessary, will take the time and go through and understand, like cross the T's, dot the I's, make sure that this is right, because at the end of the day, it does land on me. And that's a lesson I had to pick up while cleaning toilets. Because if the toilets weren't clean, then somebody was going to call my boss, and my boss was going to talk to me.
Yep.
And my ego at the time wouldn't let someone call my boss on me about leaving a spot in the bathroom, right? Or making sure that there wasn't like, there's no toilet paper in here. I also learned a level of humility, right? Because there's this idea that, you know, you get to a certain space in life and you're not willing to do certain things. That's not me. I pick up the trash today, like to this day. I own the building and I will go pick up the trash, even if I hire somebody to do it. But I also can hold them accountable because I will do that, right? And so yeah, I do appreciate you seeing that. But also like just the committed time for that 2 years, like, or a year and a half, like I saw my life dramatically change during that time period. Like I got a new career, like I started making real money. I was able to start a scholarship program. Again, this is
Nice.
like literally a year after getting a real career. I started a scholarship program for students at the school that I graduated from, because I wanted to make sure that there was a way for other people to be able to make the transition. And so, you know, like it's endowed now, and this is 13, 14 years later. And it's just
Absolutely.
like, when you do put your head down and focus on the main things, you can get some really big outcomes. And it doesn't take long, because if you're focused and you're like in it, when you're in it, time like ceases to exist. So like 5 years will go by. And if you're like really in it, you'll see all the progress you make if you stop and look back. But if you just stay in it and keep going, you can get to whatever goal it is that you want. Like nobody can tell me that you can't get to something, because I know what it takes to start at 0 or -0 or -100 and get to somewhere. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think
So go ahead.
I think
I'm
if you had a
sorry.
calling card, no, you're good. I think if you had a calling card, man, your calling card would be, man, if you ain't hearing from Phil, just wait. Just wait.
Just wait. That is
Yeah, just
facts.
wait. And then, you know, like anytime you drop off, you know, the grid, I just started looking at my watch. Like just give it about 18 months.
Yep.
And
You are
watch.
absolutely right. Yep. In 18
Yeah.
months, for sure. I definitely think, and I feel like if you give yourself 18 months, you can do anything. 1 year, 6 months, you can knock anything out. That is a fact.
Yeah, that's dope.
So, okay, to kind of start to wrap this whole thing up, I'm really interested in, how do you keep your thrill of the fight or your competitive greatness?
Man, for me, and you touched on it a little bit, from, you know, from an insecurity standpoint, is I always have, like, I don't know if it's a good fear, but man, I have a big fear of being the weakest link. And I have a big fear of being the weakest link if a project goes over budget, if we don't deliver it by deadline. I have the weakest link, even if it's a pickup basketball game. Like if we lose, I don't want to be the reason why we lost.
Yeah.
And that really just drives me, you know, to always continue to get better, to ensure that we finish a project on budget, under budget, on time, you know, ahead of time. and deliver and just deliver a good product and just deliver it with excellence. So like you graduated with your MBA in what, 2011? I
Yeah.
got mine in 2013. So it's
Mhm.
been 11 to 13 years since we received that education. The reason I'm constantly reading books, constantly bettering myself is because I'd be a fool to think that what I learned and what I
Yep.
graduated with in 2013, 10 years later, it's still going to be relevant.
Yeah.
And basically, I'd be obsolete. I'd offer no value. I'd be a non-factor, on project teams to the company that I work for. So really, it's just it really is. I don't know if it's an insecurity, but it's really the fear of just being the weakest link on the team, regardless of what it is, whether it's at work, sports,
Yep.
in the household. Like,
Yep.
I don't want to be the reason why bills don't get paid. I don't want to be the reason why we can't put food on the table. I don't want to be the reason why I mean, we played basketball together. I don't want to be the reason why we lose, that it's me, and then have somebody on the other end let me know, like that's why
Yeah.
y'all lost right there, and they're pointing
Right.
at me.
Yeah.
I can't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think that's a big lesson that we both brought up, this idea of like insecurity, because I think that people are afraid of acknowledging their own like emotional, what I'm gonna use the wrong word, shortcomings, right? But the
Oh, absolutely.
reality is that in understanding ourselves enough, we are able to compensate and also lean into what is potentially could be what will feel like to us as a weakness, right? But we have ultimately turned this weakness into, or what is perceived as a weakness internally, into like the thing that fuels us to drive forward, right? Someone told me a long time ago that nothing is wasted. And I think the reality is that when you are able to show up and acknowledge the things in you that you feel kind of throw you off or aren't the best parts of yourself, that's actually yourself calling you to be great in that said area, right? I can
That's
talk to
good.
people about like starting from the bottom because I have started from the bottom multiple times. I can tell you what it looks like to get up and go grind every day for
Absolutely.
18 months, right? And I can tell you all the emotions that you're going to go through as you are trying to get to the place that you want to get to. I can tell you what it feels like to get everything that it is that you want and lose it all and have to start over, right? And what do you do with that feeling of failure, that idea that can I do this again? All the insecurities that pop up into your brain, right? Those are really just built to see if you have the mettle to do it again. Because
Absolutely.
like life is going to push you, life is going to test you, and it is your responsibility to like be in the fight. But a lot of people, I'm going to say, there's a saying I think that is that many men live lives of quiet desperation, right? And it's partially because we are not rising to the challenge that life is putting in front of us. And I'm not saying that it's fair, because it's not. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not. But if you get up and you do the next best thing every single day, you stack those days, you will see that there's going to be some progress. And from that progress, you'll develop some confidence. And from that confidence, you'll develop some opportunities. And from those opportunities, you'll develop like big opportunities. And before you know it, those feelings that you had aren't the same anymore. And you're in a completely different space or scope in life. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. That's beautiful. I love that. Yep.
Yeah, man. This is a blast. I love coming in and having these conversations with you.